What's going on, everybody?
Yo, 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 yo. We're back.
We are, and we got a great episode for you guys today. My man, Kris Leeper, on the pod to talk a little bit about his life with diabetes, his diagnosis story, some of the behind the scenes of he and his wife's amazing reels and TikToks that they make, as well as we're going to talk a lot about golf because he and I are both big golf nerds. So this is, if we haven't talked a lot about golf on the pod, this is a good episode for that. And we also talk about Medtronic 670G and 770G's feature a SmartGuard auto mode. So we're going to talk about how auto mode works. And Trey gave me the great note that when we start talking about it, we just dive right in without really giving it any intro.
It's real nerdy. You're just like, I'm so excited. And I'm just like, bro, what is this?
Yeah, I think it's important. We got to tell people what it is. So when we're talking about auto mode, that is the hybrid closed loop feature on the MiniMed 670 and 770G systems from Medtronic. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about auto mode.
It sounds really, really cool. I'm not a golfer. I do not have a Medtronic pump, but even if you don't, this is still a really good interview to listen to. I could listen to you guys talk all day, and Kris is just a really awesome guy. Listening to his entire conversation and about his story, I really felt like he's one of those people that really believes that life is only 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it, because he's just so positive. Like, okay, well, I wasn't going to let the lack of information stop me. And he has a great support system in his wife. You know, she sounds like an amazing person.
She's the one that discovered or that encouraged him to ask about insulin pumps.
So all in all, it's a really great interview for anybody. If you recently got married and want to support your spouse, if you're thinking about switching to Medtronic, anything like that, it's a good interview. I liked it.
Yeah, if you have questions about those things, obviously we can answer them. But man, Kris Leeper came on the pod like a true pro and just knocked it out of the park. So
came on the pod with a syringe and a vial and a Medtronic pump.
He did, yeah. He talks about when they left, discharged him from the hospital, they gave him syringes and vials and a prescription, and that was it. And just probably a smack on the back, and he turned that into something majorly positive. So, Kris, thanks for coming on the show, and enjoy this interview with Kris Leeper. It has been a while since we did one of these, but I'm so excited to announce that this episode is sponsored by Medtronic Diabetes. Thanks to Medtronic for continuing to support the work we do here at Diabetics Doing Things, and enjoy this interview with Medtronic Ambassador Kris Leeper. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Diabetics Doing Things. We're telling the amazing stories of people with diabetes from all over the world. Very special guest today is a guy who I met through Medtronic in the Medtronic Ambassador Program, and then we just realized I think we have a ton of things in common. So, Kris Leeper, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me. This is a great opportunity to, like I said, further our relationship, Rob. Like I said, I think diabetes was like the 15th thing that we have in common. I think everything else, like we flow in line with everything else. And then I was like, oh yeah, he has diabetes, I have diabetes. That's number 15. So.
Hey, yeah, it was great. It was just like, oh wow, like I met you like through diabetes, and it's kind of the way that it works sometimes with a lot of people in the community. I'm sure Eritrea feels the same way about some of our diabetes friends online. Is like you run into people, and then you're like, wow, like we do have diabetes in common, but also like all this other cool stuff. So, and we're gonna talk. I'm excited about talking about that as well today. You and I met through the Medtronic Ambassador Program, and you are a Medtronic ambassador, and I've been a part of that program for a number of years. And I think the first call I was on with you, maybe the second, was like a European call, like at 3 a.m. my time.
Yep, I just remember it definitely was. Yep, it definitely was. That was I was in Virginia at the time, and it was, I want to say like 4 a.m., 4:30 a.m. And I remember waking up and starting the coffee pot, because I figured if I was going to be up at 4 and have that 2-hour meeting, like I was going to go ahead and start work right after that. And so I remember starting the coffee pot, still being really quiet, trying not to wake the dog up and stir the dog up, and not to disturb my wife. But yeah, that was a whirlwind of time. That it was dark, in my house, and it was dark in your house, and it was just an interesting discussion or time to meet at like 4:30 a.m.
It was so tough. It was like, okay, how long is this meeting going to be? Do I stay up? Do I go back to sleep? Like, cause I was an hour behind you as well. So it was, anyway, I told the Medtronic folks that I was like, I'm going to try to wake up, but I can't guarantee, I can't guarantee that 3 a.m. alarm is going to get me up.
Absolutely.
But big fun. So Kris, like, let's talk a little bit about your life with diabetes. How did you come to join the T1D family?
Oh man, it's crazy. Me and my wife were just talking because since we've been in Portland, kind of walked me like kind of just reminisce back to my diagnosis. So all the way up until like I went to the hospital and things were going south. Like I was in Canada for like 2 weeks. And I remember having the symptoms, being in Canada for work and feeling awful, feeling terrible, and not really able to enjoy my time there. And just like it was just terrible time. We were walking to restaurants, walking to bars, walking to, just enjoying the city because we were there for 2 weeks. I mean, we were just really sightseeing and doing everything that we could to really enjoy our time there. And I just felt awful. And then once we got back, I took a vacation with my wife. We went to New York. In New York, we were walking around. We were trying to be social, and we're really like just trying to get out there and do things. And I just felt terrible. Like I just felt like awful. So end up going back to work after vacation. Being in work, going throughout the day, really struggling. They was like, hey, you might want to go to the doctor. You might go to the hospital because you're not acting like yourself. So I finally went to the doctor, and this is after like 2.5 months of feeling this way. Like I just didn't go to the doctor, and went to the doctor, drove myself to then just like local urgent care, and I said, hey, I started to feel this bad, and they checked my blood sugar, and they said it was through the roof, and they said you have to go to the emergency room like right now. Like you have to go to the emergency room. And luckily the emergency room was only like 2 blocks away from where I was. So it was an easy trip to go from there to there and get checked in. Fast forward a few days, doctor comes in, you have type 1 diabetes. And what does that really mean? And I was like, just like, oh my gosh, like my life changed forever. Like, oh my God, like this is crazy. Like the other day I didn't have to worry about any of this stuff you're telling me. Now I have to do that. And I was 26 years old. And I'm like, this is like, in my mind, the prime time of my life where I was still young enough to do a bunch of things and learning a bunch of things and experiencing different things as I kind of grew up. And I'm like, this is so different than what I imagined my life would be like. And to go through that journey and process to kind of what I knew about diabetes then to what I know now, it's completely like night and day. Like I really thought I was going to die like a few years after that because I didn't see it being sustainable. Because I walked out of the hospital with a vial of insulin and some needles and a prescription for test strips, and I was like, this is archaic. This is crazy. Like I can't live a life like this for much longer than this. And I remember having tough conversations with my wife. We were newly married. And how do you tell your wife that you're newly married? Like, hey, I know you said yes just like a couple years ago, but I don't know if I'm gonna be around a couple more years after this. Like, that's a tough scenario to go from starting a career to talking about, will and life insurance and all this other stuff because you just didn't think that was sustainable. Like you just like, oh my gosh, like this is not fun. This is not interesting at all.
And it sounds like that you didn't get a lot of great information before that you got, released to the world. Right. And I think that's very much the case for adults who are diagnosed with diabetes. It brings up two things. Like one, you needed more information and you needed more probably hand holding and more like somebody to tell you this is going to be fine, but you got to take care of yourself. But then also you remember your old life. Like, even me, like I was diagnosed at 16. I remember what it was like before, but I sort of now I'm just totally acclimated to always having diabetes. So like you have
absolutely
26 years prior to that.
Yep, absolutely. And it's crazy. Like you say that, like I remember going to an appointment with the doctor and the nurse team, around the hospital and the care unit in the hospital. And it was like a dietitian appointment, really. It was like a wellness check and just a, hey, how are you doing? You left the hospital, a couple weeks ago. Here's how's everything going? And I remember the lady telling me, talk to me about what you eat. Tell me about your daily life routine. She's like, wow, you eat too much. Like, oh, like, what do you mean I eat too much? Like, I'm 26 years old. Like, at the time I was like going to the gym regularly and all like, I did, sporting events and played in rec leagues. And she was like, you eat too much. Like, I'm like, what do you mean? This is how I normally ate. And, I don't know any different. Like, how do I transition to something like this? And like you said, the information that was given to me was very limited from a closed eye view on how to live a life and be normal with type 1 diabetes. And because I just didn't see how the two connected. I just didn't get it. I just didn't grasp the idea.
Well, and I think it takes time to explain, and I think like one checkup, one wellness check, one time in the hospital, there's a frequency there that you need, right? And I think even
Absolutely.
still, like it's really years before you're used to all of the sort of one-off situations that you're going to have to navigate throughout. But you mentioned that you and your wife were recently married. What was that like on your relationship, introducing diabetes to the whole equation?
It was funny because my wife received the information and she was like fired up day one. Like she came home and threw a bunch of stuff away that we had in our refrigerator and our cabinets. I'm like, what are you doing? And I just couldn't pull myself away from that. But she was all on board from day one. She was like, okay, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it. She threw a bunch of stuff away. She gave me stuff a bunch away. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. And then I remember her cooking like meals shortly after that. That was like low carb or just a lot differently than how we ate before. So she was totally on board to get me there. I just had a hard time accepting it based off the limited feedback I was given from professionals that you go to and ask about. Like I felt super uncomfortable about what I was doing and what we were told to do because of just the limited. Like I was just thinking like, hey, I can do this if I'm motivated to go on a diet, or if I really want to get back in shape, and I can do that from a short period of time and I can really be motivated. But to talk about lifestyle change at 26 to really dramatically take a turn, it's like, wow, like this is not just a 6-month crash course to get in shape. This is 60 years of mind shaping and getting conditioned to change your outlook on a lot of things. So that takes a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Like I think they have to tell you, and if they don't, shame on them. But like this is not going to go away anytime soon.
Yep.
And I think when you're diagnosed as a kid, I think they always try to make your parents feel better, to say like that they think a cure is going to happen in 10, 20 years. I think like I was told 20. I know people who have been told 10, and I think they just do that because they're nervous and they don't want to tell you that you're going to have this for your whole life, because in those moments you're like fragile, and like you said, you've never, probably at 26, I wasn't really contemplating the rest of my life, and kind of just focused on the moment.
Yep.
And, man, it'll dramatically make you grow up quick.
Absolutely. Tell me about it. And it's one of those things where we're very similar, Rob. Like we're competitive nature. We've been in sports our whole lives. Like we wanted to know worst case scenario so we can start pulling ourselves out of that. And it seems like you said, the information that you were given, or for me, wasn't that worst case scenario. This is what you have to do to change. It was, hey, do this, and just hope for the best. Like that's not a plan. I'm a planner. I like to think of and really prioritize. And when you tell me certain things, I'm like, well, I can do that, but that doesn't sound like me. That doesn't sound like my life. And it's crazy to always have that stigma attached to it. It's like, how can I do this and be myself in everything that I do going forward? And it's not that, but it's just knowing that you evolve into a better version of yourself with the knowledge that we all are getting now with diabetes technology and how to live a life. And that's what's kind of freed me up to be myself and to do some of the things that I've been doing in my life.
And, I mean, you talk a lot about like the psychology behind it. And I think you lose part of your identity and you also gain a new identity based on your diabetes diagnosis, right? You talked about like eventually coming to terms with it. And like, as you learn about technology and you learn about lifestyle changes and kind of adjusting to that new normal, what was it? Do you remember what changed that for you, or sort of what gave you that confidence, or what started you on that path to discover that?
It was just gaining the experience, gaining different experiences, learning more about myself and learning my diagnosis and owning it. And it just as I experienced more throughout the day and, had a good day at work or I had a good work trip or whatever else. And I'm like, hey, I can do this and be successful. Because a lot of times, we were just talking about this at work the other day, a lot of times if you don't know something, you don't talk about it, you kind of just, your mind makes up a version of what it's supposed to be like. And it's not true. Most of the time it's so false of reality, but you have to go through it. You have to experience it. You have to talk about it. You have to open up about it to really gain understanding and revelation to where you can move forward and move past it. if you don't talk about it, you don't, kind of move or face it or address it, you're basically just like your mind makes up something, and you're always paralyzed in fear and just always held back from being yourself.
My old man used to say, "The mind is a terrible thing, and it must be stopped," which I think he stole from
true.
somebody. But yeah, that man, I hear you. I think those stories we tell ourselves, especially in those isolated scenarios, you can get real off track real quick.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And some of those stories, you're just not seeing the whole picture. So
Absolutely.
you talked about technology. You left the hospital with a syringe and a vial, like many of us. What do you use to treat your diabetes now?
So right now I have a MiniMed 770G system with CGM, and I'm loving it. I'm loving the technology. I'm loving the access to have Bluetooth connectivity on my phone. I am just loving, having the information at my fingertips. I'm loving making, any adjustments or anything, just being able to live a life where it's not just monotone. Life is not just like this all the time. Like there's going to be ups, downs, hurdles, and everything. And it feels like technology allows me to just have the latest and greatest access to my numbers and what I need to do to live just a normal, better life for myself.
And, I mean, first of all, I couldn't agree more. I love being able to check my Medtronic numbers on my phone. I mean, it's just a huge hack, especially like when you're in a meeting, you don't want to take your pump out of your pocket or whatever the case. Like, it's just nice. Yep. For you, like, this obviously isn't your first pump. Do you remember like how you got introduced to insulin pumps and CGM and what those conversations were like and the sort of impact you were able to feel from that?
Sure. So, when I went through the first 4 years of not knowing or seeing one, it was so like different for me to even hear that a pump that you'd have to be on you. Like I've heard you say, like, you thought it'd be surgically implanted. Like I thought that too. Like I didn't know what it would be like, because that just seems so like out of body. Like that just seems like so crazy. So actually my wife saw like a little doctor infomercial slide in the doctor, waiting room. And she just saw it like just a little short clip. And she's like, "Hey, I think I saw an insulin pump on the TV and the monitor out there. Like, you probably need to make an appointment just to ask questions, see what it's about." I was like, "Nah, don't worry about it. Like, I'm good with what I'm doing. I've accepted using pins and from MDIs and hey, I made an adjustment already. So I'm
right.
good."
Yeah. No more changes, please.
Yeah, no more changes. So, and it's the wisdom of understanding from your significant other is next to none. It's the best, because she was looking out for me. She was like really trying to provide feedback to just help, just, supported me just knowing and getting the information. So made an appointment, went to the doctor, and, I actually got to see one for the first time. I was like, "Hey, this isn't as big or as crazy as I thought." And I asked a bunch of questions like, how is it, in you? And, what happens when all this stuff happens? And, tell me this, what do you do if I want to go play basketball? What happens if I want to go swimming? Tell me that. And I was just waiting for a negative response. And, and it wasn't a negative response. It's like, "Hey, if you feel like, you can check your blood sugar and have the CGM and you can see the readings on your pump, you can just take your pump off. And if it's only just for an hour or two, like, you'll be fine. You just check your blood sugar and resume and keep going."
I think that's such an important, I think that's an important thing to talk about. Sorry for cutting in on you, but like,
no.
you know how it is, like when you're a young active person with diabetes and you just think that there can be no one else out there that's worried about the stuff that you need. It's like, okay, well that may work for somebody, but I like to swim or I like to play basketball. Like I'm different. Yep. And then they're like, "No, dude, you can just take this off." Or like, here's some like, tights, a brand of tights that you can tuck it into or whatever.
Yeah.
It's fine. You're not that special.
Right. Like Lauren, our good friend Lauren Cox plays in the WNBA with it on. So, I mean, if she can do that, we could probably, get out and play a little sand volleyball.
She wears it too. Like she wears it during the game. So yeah.
I mean, you can. I mean, I haven't played in a professional basketball game before, but I mean, I do things a lot with just my pump in my pocket or clipped on my pocket pants or belt clip. Like it's just super convenient and easy to do whatever you need to do. Like it really is that easy. It's
so funny. Like you were talking about me thinking that it was surgically implanted and like, and there were pumps like that, but they were like one-offs, like way back in the day. And I just remember trying to explain that to my like 70-year-old CDCES, or I guess CDE at the time. And she was just like this very sweet old lady. And I was like, ma'am, this is not sexy. I'm 19 years old. I don't want like a big hole in myself. And she was like, what are you talking about? Here's, and she had the little fake, flesh, it's like that skin. She's like, and she put the sight on, she's like, that's it. And I was like, okay, well, maybe we can have a conversation then. Maybe I'm an idiot.
So Rob, like I'm curious to like your professional experience. Like how did you make the transition, and what was it like in that different kind of active lifestyle? Because I mean, you were out there, you were active, like you were there.
I was. So I didn't wear I wore in college. I switched my pump. So I was on MDI for my first 2 years. First 2 years. And that worked pretty well. I gotten used to like the long acting, and I actually think, looking back, for that, the way that we practiced and the kind of culture that we had as a team, MDI probably worked better, just because you didn't have to be disconnected a lot, because I was disconnected, or I did disconnect during practices and games. Just because I didn't have, I don't know, I just got into the habit of that, and it worked out. I had plenty of lows and highs, just like always. I talk a lot about my best days as an athlete were probably my worst days of diabetes control, just because I was pushing myself so hard, and
Gotcha.
Didn't have CGM at the time that was really like suitable for that type of activity. So I think like if I had been in college today, having CGMs that are pretty durable and having phones and like pumps and tights that are easy to tuck things into, I think I would have worn it, at least during practices, if not games. So that's probably, if I went back, I think that's probably what I would do. But yeah, it's a good question. And I think like, for me at the time, like I wore the 530 Paradigm, Medtronic Paradigm Revel. And I wore that pump for like 8 years. That pump was indestructible, and it never, I think one of them died on me one time. They sent me another one, and then that thing wouldn't quit. It just refused. This little Game Boy screen. Nice. So let's talk about like active lifestyle, man. Like one of the things that I haven't talked about enough, but I'm really talking about lately, probably because I'm so, just laser focused on trying to bring my handicap down, is playing golf, and, which I love to do. And especially during the pandemic, it's like one of those only social, like outdoor, like distant, easy things to do on a regular basis. And so that's been a nice rediscovery of the love for golf for me. But many people with diabetes can struggle with, having to fill their entire golf bag up with snacks. And so that's where I think talking a little bit about SmartGuard auto mode, which we don't talk about a ton on the podcast, but I think is a super important thing for people to know about. I often, and I'd love to hear your perspective on it as well, I can go a whole round of golf with the right conditions without ever going high or low.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's times where I have not infusion sets, but my glucose meter and test strips like in my golf bag that I keep in there all the time, so I don't forget anything or I'm always unprepared. So there's times where I can go a whole round of golf and not even touch my little safety kit or my snack pack and enjoy myself, because I know auto mode is kind of keeping me standing up in the background. Like it's keeping me going, where before, cause I had the 630G before 770, and I would have my golf bag full of snacks. I had usually something at the turn, a little Powerade or, something just to, give me some carbs. And I was always taking like every few holes, I was always concerned about my blood sugar. Like I was like, oh, let me go check it real quick. I got some time, or we're waiting in front of the group in front of us. I got some time. Let me check my blood sugar. Let me eat something really quick. And it was tough to golf is one of those mind games where you have to stay in the game. And if your head's out of it, you're basically out of it anyway. And I'm a very competitive person. That's how I kind of got into golf. Like I stopped playing other competitive sports, but golf was there, willing and waiting outside of, other competitive sports. So I wanted to be the best I could, lower my handicap, like you said, Rob. I wanted to really try to compete and challenge myself. So there was times where I could feel my blood sugar getting low or high, and that would take me out of my mental headspace of the golf round or practice.
Well,
And
and like that's not just unique to golf, right? That's kind of with everything. Is like if
That's
you
true.
know, if you feel your blood sugar dropping and you're in a meeting, or you feel like, I was asking myself earlier today, is like, is my blood sugar high because I'm pissed off, or am I pissed off because my blood sugar is high? Like which one is it? Because it really does take you out of it, and ultimately it's like survival at its like core, right? Is your body
Absolutely.
is in trouble, and of course that becomes the most important thing.
Absolutely. So yeah, it was always an event before I had 770 and going out to the golf course and really enjoying my time. It was actually a actual physical event where I had to prepare and pack and plan to enjoy myself out there. And a lot of times I would end up having a low or I would stay high, and it was never one or other. It was always like, hey, you could go low and then you'll correct too much and then go high and then spin the back nine all high. With auto mode, I'm able to plan, obviously at the very beginning of my round, go to temporary target mode, and then really just kind of just monitor it as I go, as I'm walking from hole to hole or I'm in between shots. I just, look at my phone. Yep, I'm good. And we're on to the next hole or on to the next shot. I mean, it's really taken a lot of the guesswork out of how I used to manage it when I was on the course, because the 630G had the basal rates, the percentage. So right. Depending on if you're walking or you're riding, like I would fluctuate those percentages based off, how hot it was, how cold it was, would I be eating on the course? Would I, be sweating a lot, when you walk? So all that came into fact when I was playing around the golf, and I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about my blood sugar way too much. Like I'm thinking about my diabetes way too much when I'm trying to do this activity. And I'm really like taking myself out of it every so often, knowing that I'm worrying about my numbers and my body.
Well, and I mean, like that headspace and that kind of way of operating, I think that like exercise is hard enough as it is, like it's hard enough to get motivated. It's hard enough to get to the gym. It's hard enough to feel good, or, shake off a work day or what have you, or wake up early. Same thing with like enjoy, like things like golf, which is clearly an entertainment and enjoyment, but also physical exercise. So if the cost of doing something that I enjoy, like I got to do all of this extra stuff, it robs you some of some of that joy and some of that, those things. And I think that, I mirror your, experience exactly. Like before CGM, before SmartGuard auto mode, I would have to have I'd have to stop at 7-Eleven or stop in the pro shop before my round and make sure that I had enough stuff to make it through, because I know after 4 or 5 holes, I'm going to start, especially if it's warm, I'm going to start sweating. I'm going to be walking and my blood sugar's going to start to come down. So I need to keep it up, but I don't want to get to go too high. And then are we eating lunch at the turn? Are we eating lunch, like how much are we eating? Am I going to have a bunch of insulin on board and I'm going to crash even more? So, it's just been a cool thing, like things that, the way I've heard people talk about it before is like one of the biggest advantages of hybrid closed loop systems is it lessens the mental burden of diabetes. And I think what's cool about that in this particular instance is we both know what it was like before. Mm-hmm. We know like, and then you get to experience and step into that new technology and like new experience. And you're like, oh, okay, well, this is different. Like I am back to, I check my blood sugar the same amount of times that my buddy that doesn't have diabetes in the card next to me did. And that's none. Or I could just peek at it on my pump or my phone and just say, okay, well, here we are. We got a nice flat line. And I don't know, just the amount of, it feels like a win whenever that happens. It's just like, man, I got to do what I wanted to do, not think about diabetes for a long time, not running into any problems. And I feel great. And I don't know. I could ride that high all the time. That's mental health more than anything, really.
Well, you said it just as not being taken away from anything. If you're in a meeting or you're having lunch with your friends or you're doing something, you're watching a movie, like you don't want to take yourself out of that situation and go handle a high or low or, just to check your blood sugar. And it allows you to because golf is a social, we have fun. We're playing with friends or we're playing with people that we work with. Like it's very sociable, and you hate to take yourself out of those situations when a conversation was going so well, or a good, problem solving opportunity at work comes up and you get to talk about that. And you just always want to be present during those times. And with technology has allowed you to stay within those moments and not have to take you out of those to make sure to adjust and to come back. Like there's so many times where something was going on and I was like, so self-conscious, like, oh, I think I'm going low, or I think might go high. Let me go check my blood sugar. So I had to grab my stuff. I didn't want to check it in front of people. So I went to the bathroom and I went to go check my blood sugar. And I'm like, okay, I'm back. I'm like, what are we talking about? I think I was talking about something completely different than what I left the conversation.
That ship sailed and you're jumping in, 5 minutes behind, right?
Right. And it's crazy that, being some of the ages that we're diagnosed, like some of the experiences that we are accustomed to having and not having to take ourselves out of those and really enjoy them, 100% is so key to golf and to everything that we do, because we never want to make it seem like we're taking ourselves out of a conversation or out of a situation for our diabetes. Like that's the worst. That is the absolute worst.
It's a burden, you feel like absolutely. And I think that, from my perspective, at least, like I don't want to feel like a burden. I don't want to make people feel like they need to worry about me. I don't like any kind of attention like that. And, it's too difficult to explain in a short amount of time. Like if you're in a meeting, like it's a 5-minute break, like, hey, like what happened in there? It's like, oh, well, how much time you got? But when you have, otherwise like an alarm will go off like in a meeting, like on high. It's like, okay, well I can just give myself a little bit of, insulin here and we're just going to sit and just do just fine. Nobody has to know. And it's not that you hide it. It's just like a convenience thing.
It is. Well, you never want to go into a situation like you have to worry about me. Like I can handle this. I know what I'm doing. Like I have to, like, you don't want to announce it. You just don't want to say, oh, I got to do this. And I got to tell you this. And then, that pops the question. I'm like, oh my gosh, was it the cookie that we had? I'm so sorry that we had cookies. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's the worst. That is the absolute worst. And it's like, no, it's not that. It's not that cookie. It's not that. It's not that. Like, don't say that. Right. That's one of the worst things that people say to me. It was like I remember I was at work one time and I purposely, this was like when I first started pumping, and we had like a pretty big lunch at work. Like we were having a working lunch. So before I checked my blood sugar, before nobody saw, came in, we were eating, things were fine and everything like that. And everybody was like, oh man, these cookies are good. This is good. And everybody had a cookie and they were like just talking how good the cookies were. So I know shortly after, I had to excuse myself before we started back with work and we, stopped the social, aspect of lunch. I, grabbed my stuff, my little, little Pell lunch insulated bag and went to the bathroom. And the first thing this lady next to me said, she's like, was it the cookies that made you, do that? And I'm like, it's not, it wasn't that. It was the, okay, let me reset myself before we go into the next phase of the activity. Let me make sure that I'm okay. And then it wasn't that I was worried that I ate too much of a cookie, or it wasn't that I was expecting my blood sugar to be 1,000. It was just, I wanted to prepare for the next conversation that we were having that was work related, that I wanted to make sure I was present there for the whole time. And with auto mode and the technology, it's allowed that burden, like you said, to be released, and you can be there and be present the whole time and not have to worry about, oh, am I going to crash? Did I have enough food? Did I bolus enough when I ate this, or what's going on with my body to make sure I'm stable throughout this present time that I want to be present. And it's like that with golf. Like, you're out there, you're enjoying the time most of the time. When you're out there, it's super nice outside. Like it's super pleasant, super enjoyable. And you want to physically enjoy that. Like you want to feel the sun. You want to feel, just the natural of the earth and be normal and not have to take you away from the situation. And that's what auto mode does for me. And it sounds like it does for you too as well.
It does. It's cool. I mean, it's one of those things like when, I don't know about you guys' experience, but when I was diagnosed, they were like, yeah, in the future, you'll have all this stuff and it'll like tell you your blood sugar on your phone. And like, it'll be able to control it for you. And it's like, and now all these things are happening. So, it checks your blood sugar every 5 minutes, gives you a micro bolus or not, and you move on. Is it perfect? No. I mean, certainly I still have diabetes. That is clear. But it's, I don't know, it has given me back, like you said, the ability to be present in more situations in my life and allow me to really disconnect and enjoy from that sort of chronic stress of living with diabetes, man. It's just like, it's always kind of hanging over. And while there certainly are good aspects to it, I think the community being one, it's just nice to just get a little mental break every now and then.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I was very conscious of going low at night or going low, like while I played golf throughout the day. And then before I was able to eat or to check, going low before that. And that was a fear of mine for the longest. And I remember I actually passed out one time. Like I golfed, we played 36 holes in the day on a Saturday. So I was golfing all day, and I ate okay. Like I didn't eat a bunch, but I ate enough just to keep going because we were just on a time clock. And I golfed all day long, came home like at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. My wife, I had dinner ready. It was just in the microwave. I had to heat it up. So while I was kind of prepping my food, like I could feel myself getting low and actually passed out because of me not, really eyeing the ball on my numbers and what I was doing. And that's always been a fear of mine, like not just understanding and not feeling it enough. And I passed out right my food was I was getting my food out of the microwave, putting it on the table, and I passed out. And so automotive has really released that and eliminated that fear of going low and passing out when I'm not keep my eye on the ball. Like when I'm enjoying something or I have a timetable and I don't pull myself away to do it, like it has allowed me to do that. And there's times where if I wanted to get up and go to the store and come right back and I was going to be gone for like 30 seconds, like I wouldn't grab everything like I would be going out for the day. Like I would just go and I would be okay. If I'm going to spend an hour out and come back, I don't have my monitor with me. I don't have, test strips with me. I don't have a snack with me. I know that
you're not like tethered to all that stuff. You have a little bit more freedom.
You're not. Yep, absolutely. And it's definitely done that. It has definitely made life more convenient and easier to just pick up and go, especially when you're not, it's not like that day thing or that planned thing. It's like you're able to be spontaneous and to go out and do a lot of the things that you did before your diagnosis. Like you could just go, but as long as you come back and correct, but you can go and you can do what you need to do, and it doesn't stop you from enjoying the moment.
Listen to you guys talk about golf. And so first of all, I am not a Medtronic user. I do not golf, but I did write this down. If golfing, bring snacks, because I'm really thinking about big old Rob and you, sir, just drinking a juice box on the side of a golf course. Like, what kind of snacks do you guys bring? Like, I don't, a grown man drinking an apple juice box. I don't know.
A Powerade is key. Like, cause most like cart girl, like, and the cart girl is your friend, right? So like, I might, and if I'm feeling a little, I mean, just, emotional high or low, not even blood sugar related, I might get a payday. You know what I'm saying? I might get a Snickers. I'm not me when I'm hungry. But I think for me, one of the things like in Texas, especially, I'm sure it was like this at times in Virginia, like if I left my gummy bears in my bag in my car, like they would melt. So I would have this, like, sometimes I would just have like a burger patty, like a patty of gummies. And I just have to like eat it. Like just, that's when that's when your blood sugar's real low and you got nothing else to treat it with. You're sitting there eating a whole patty of
survival mode.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
I know you guys have done this. So have you ever gone to the store just to get low snacks? Mm-hmm. And I'm sure the lady that rings you up in the store thinks you're just, I mean, I've done that and I gotten certain looks where it's like, oh, what is he doing? Like he's got cookies, he's got gummies, he's got apple juice. I'm like, it's like, what are you eating?
Well, you know how like, it's so interesting how your brain works when you're low, because it rewards you, gives you that extra dopamine injection when you get food, which is why food tastes so good. And you get the ultra munchies because your body's like, hey, we need food to survive. Like you should enjoy this food.
Wait, so that's a thing?
Yeah. Your brain is like just overflowing with dopamine of like, get us food now. And so, Doritos sound good. Gummy bears sound good. Powerade sounds good. Don't give me a bunch of choices. I'm going to take it.
What's the weirdest thing you've eaten when you were low, Kris? The weirdest thing.
The weirdest thing. Let's see. That's a tough one. That is a tough one.
What about you, Rob?
Oh, I know. I already
Man.
know what it is, but I'll.
Weirdest thing.
Mine's gross. I'm not telling you guys until you tell me. Show me yours, I'll show you mine. But you guys tell me first.
Yeah, I feel like I definitely like made a sandwich one time and like didn't have much snacks. This is probably like in college, and I was like just stacking Doritos in my peanut butter, like just trying to get as many carbs in this one sandwich as I could. Maybe put some gummies in it. I don't know, like gummy worms. I was just trying to put everything in the sandwich that I could. It wasn't I don't know, I'm not proud of it, but that's me. Was
it your proudest moment?
No, for sure not. But you know.
Like,
Gotta do what you gotta do. And sometimes though, like early on too in my diabetes life, like especially when I was playing sports, I really didn't eat like a lot of like I ate pretty good. And you know, especially with diabetes, like trying to keep the diet in line and all that stuff. So if I got low and I was like, man, what rub those hands together? Like, what can I have? Like, what can I have here? Could I eat this whole pint of ice cream? Like, absolutely. Let's get it popping. So yeah, I would kind of like reward myself with sweets when I was low and I was younger.
That I've definitely done that. So there's like maybe like once a month where it perfectly aligns where you're going low and you're hungry, and it's the time, like the time to expend yourself a little bit further and go in. And I've done that, and it happens maybe like once a month where I the stars align and it happens where I can extend myself a bit and eat all the junk food and stuff and still be pretty okay.
This is my moment.
All about balance. Yeah. All right. What do you got? You've been hyping this up. This better not fall flat here.
Okay. So I definitely once made myself and I was going to tell you, it's always peanut butter, one of those marshmallow
100%.
fluff and peanut butter sandwiches, and ate it over the sink like a rat in the dark. Disgusting.
I've been there.
Sad.
Well, I like, you know, I mean, first of all, marshmallow cream, like why does it exist?
Nasty.
I don't know, but it's good on a sandwich with some peanut butter. I can't front. It's got to be good. The other thing though, I once ate like I had like half a bag of Doritos, spicy sweet chili. So this is in college. And I was like, oh, I don't have any protein. I was pretty low. So I just dipped them in peanut butter and just ate a bunch of them.
You're sick, Rob. You're a
gross.
sick person.
I'm not proud of it, but I can't. It was good. You know what I'm saying? Did I have a stomach ache later? Have some heartburn for sure. But you know, got to do what you got to do.
Let me find out you a binge eater. Let me find out.
Is I am for sure. Absolutely.
Oh my goodness.
I have my avalanche foods just like anybody else. Cashew butter. Whew, get that away from me.
Oh my God.
Okay, back to the topic. Kris, you and your wife have made some pretty funny TikToks and reels. What's it like to like make diabetes content and like talk to your wife about diabetes content in a diabetes content household? I got to ask because I live in one, so it's always interesting.
And I'll tell you this, Rob, like going through the journey and growing social media, that's how you meet people and stuff. Like I think for me, and I'm sure it's like this for a lot of people that's going to listen to this and people that just have diabetes or are in the community, like you made diabetes cool. Like you made it to where it was kind of normalized.
Oh, well, thanks, man. I can't take credit for that, but thank you.
No. And I think
Chris, you're doing a disservice here, man. His head is gonna, I'm just kidding.
But it's one of those things where it's like, you don't know what it looks like on people and you don't talk about it. And that's when we make these videos and we do all this funny stuff, or we try to be funny. Like it's just trying to be normal and try to be regular. Like, you know, that's what it is. Like I'm sure when people hear your story, Rob, about playing professional sports and living with the diabetes, like it's like, wow, like that can happen. Like I can do that. Like that's an option for me. And if it doesn't have to be professional sports, it could be professional, whatever that you do in your life.
100%.
But it's one of those things where like, wow, like if he did it, like I probably can do it as well. Like it's not that far fetched from being normal and not stopping to dream, not stopping to stop doing what you love. And it's those things that if you can't laugh at yourself or you can't have fun at yourself, like you can't do any of it. And that's what it is. Like it's hoping to break the stigma of diabetes of being a shameful disease and you know, shaming yourself and not feeling good about yourself, to just being normal, just laughing about it and just really having a fun time about it. So I mean, there's plenty of content, you know, that is on social media that does that. And I, you know, from the earliest times of social media and stuff and seeing, you know, I think maybe like the first few times, you Google like, type 1 diabetes or something. And it's just weird. It used to be weird content that was available when it popped
Real
up.
weird.
It was just weird. And it's like
sometimes gross, lots of bloody test strips.
Yeah. And it was
which
like,
is fine to share, it's real.
But that scares a lot of people, I'm sure, or just puts a stigma around it. Like, oh my gosh, like that's horrible. But then when you see contents like yours and stuff that we try to do, it's like makes it normal, like makes it kind of fun, and it makes it, kind of light.
And we talk about like normalization of a lot of things. And I think, like you said, just seeing somebody else who is dealing with something, whether good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes like, my content strategist brain, like a lot of times people post things that go bad, and that always performs really well.
Yep.
Because everybody knows what that's like, because goes bad.
Yep.
Like welcome to diabetes. Something's going to go wrong. And it's all about where, can you manage that obstacle? And I think, my background as an athlete has taught me so much and given me the mentality and the strength. Like right now I'm watching Last Chance U, the basketball version, and I'm just like, inject that into my veins. That's my experience. But like, so it's very top of mind for me. And I just remember being 19, 20, 21 years old, like wanting something super bad and not being able to have it or having someone else in charge of it. And I feel a lot of that about diabetes is like, you can want something all you want. And diabetes has its own mind sometimes, and you can prepare the best you can. We're talking about rounds that go really well and really smooth. And there are rounds that are totally up and down. Whether I wake up early in the morning and I've got a high blood sugar, so I got to treat it then. I've got insulin on board. Well, I'm going to need a snack. And that's auto mode just can't fix that. And I think diabetes, it's just how strong are you? Are you able to navigate that next obstacle? And I think it helps so much in the community to be able to look left and right to whether it's an athlete or whether it's just somebody who's talking about diabetes, just a friend you met online, to know that somebody else knows what you're going through. And I think that's the thing I look forward to the most about in-person events is you meet people for the first time, and instead of this weird preamble about yourself of 15 minutes of conversation, you get to skip all of it and then just really learn who this person is. And you all at the same time have this thing in common that you both deeply understand. I think that's just being seen in that way is super healthy.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Totally agree. I mean, you said it. That was a mouthful and you said it. Like, that's it. That's what it's about. Like, especially when the community is growing, and it's like people are going to need that content, that feel good content, because people are going to have diabetes, and diabetes is no respect to the persons. Like you could be at your greatest or your lowest moment, and diabetes could come back and say, okay, here we are, you're at the same step as somebody else. And people need to see that. Like, people need to be able to Google diabetes and see good stories, see how struggling stories happen, but it's not necessarily going to be your experience or something that you will naturally have to go through. Like, you can have a great experience with diabetes, and you can not stop dreaming. You cannot stop being that version of yourself. Like, just because, Rob, like, you can't stop playing basketball just because, this came up. Like, this was an interruption. Yes, it's an interruption, but it's not going to stop you from doing some of the things you love to do.
But I think it's important to hear people say that, and not enough people at the outset of their life with diabetes hear those words. You certainly didn't from your care team in the hospital, right?
Absolutely.
And it's so important. And, I think I'll say it, and I think there's lots of caveats to it for sure. But if you haven't heard it before, hear it now from all three of us is, whatever dreams you have for your life, you can still have. Those are still within reach. Diabetes is just going to be a part of it. And, I'm living proof of that. I think you are too, Kris, and Eritrea for sure. Whatever those dreams are. I mean, they don't have to be an athlete or being famous or whatever. That is just whatever journey you want to go on. But, there's been people on this podcast who are amazing moms and amazing providers for their family, and entrepreneurs and innovators, and just regular people with a heart for people. And, whatever you're trying to do, I think, like, there's so many cool stories of somebody making diabetes work for the life that they want. And, making it work, no matter how many highs and lows they had, no matter how many times they have to eat a melted bag of gummy bears, because it'll happen.
There's a lot of beauty in that struggle, like those flatline moments that you guys were talking about. I'm sure you appreciate them even more because we have all those highs and lows. So when you get those small breaks, it's like, man, what a great day. I really appreciate it today. I don't know. I feel like I'm more grateful than the average person because of diabetes.
And, I can't wait to be an old head and like all these young kids are like, well, my blood sugar is the same all the time. Like, oh, I've been, on the hybrid closed loop and the CGM, and it's only one thing. And it like does, connects to my phone and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, well, you might not believe this, but we used to have to give injections, like, and so right. I think it's cool to see like the relationship with the technology at every step. There are going to be people 770 in particular, and, 780 is coming soon, but there's some kid 2 years old and above who's diagnosed with diabetes today, and his mom will never know a world where she can't have access to see his blood sugar on her phone.
Right.
And for all of the diabetes parents over the years that had to do all those finger sticks in the middle of the night to a kid that did not want their finger sticked, then I think it's good, those gradual steps. And hey man, I'm just glad to have some cool people alongside along my journey. And Kris, for sure, man, it's been cool to get to know you, and looking forward to continue to work on stuff with you in the future. And hopefully we got to get a golf round
absolutely
here on the calendar here sometime.
I need a takeover, Kris. I need to see a day in your life, sir. I would love to see that.
Yeah, heck yeah,
absolutely. Definitely give me a few weeks because I need my golf clubs here, and I'm kicking myself from not having my golf clubs because the weather's been beautiful here. But would love to see what you guys are doing. Love the energy. Rob, you have been a voice for type 1 diabetics for a while now, and like I said, from my perspective, like it's when you think about seeing normal people doing diabetic things, you think of Rob out. Like you think of how you've made it seem and look, especially with your journey with professional sports and just doing those things. Like you're giving hope to people that you don't even know that you're giving hope to. And like we were talking earlier, like the content that people see, like they need to see that because it gives hope for the future generation to say, hey, I can do just what these guys are doing. I can do what Rob's doing. So absolutely. Thanks for having me today, guys. I appreciate the time. I love conversations with good, healthy diabetics and just talking and advancing the culture a bit because it's still a stigma and it's still out there. And I love the conversation that we all had today.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I mean, that was a pro sign off, man. You nailed it. But yeah, I mean, for those who want to follow Kris.Leeper on Instagram, we'll definitely share his account on the show notes. But I think it's so important to hear stories, from people who live with diabetes, and you never know. Thank you, Kris, for sharing, all those ins and outs of your journey, because who knows, maybe somebody that's listened to every episode up to this point, this is the one that resonated with them. And I think that's the power of the community. And I'm just looking forward to continuing to be a part of it.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.